Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast. This is where you go to learn how to use pure motive service to create higher value to grow your results. And now, here is your host, America's service sales coach, Joe Crisara.
Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast. My name is Joe Crisara, America's service sales coach, and I have with me a very special guest, Mr. James Bailey from Bailey Plumbing in Morgan Hill, California. James, welcome to the Service MVP Podcast.
Right on. Thanks, Uncle Joe. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're going to do an episode today that's very special, which is going to be called Call by Call Plumbing Success. For many years, James, I think a lot of people think that the call by call was just intended only for HVAC contractors. And you are a plumbing contractor who is starting to move into multiple trades. So HVAC is one of the trades, and electrical is another one you do as well.
Yep.
But tell us a little about, do you think it's a myth that it's only for HVAC, or does this apply to plumbers too, do you think? Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, I think the HVAC division is pretty much, they're a little ahead of the plumbers and the electricians in this area because they know better. But after taking the call by call class through Service MVP, I was able to see the tremendous value that it actually brings, right? Call by call management isn't really for one trade or the other. It's for every trade, because what I found is that when you have your technician kind of going out there and going through their process, sometimes they forget a few things, or they tend to take a shortcut because they found a way that works, and so they stop doing one part of the process or the step. And with a call by call manager, what you're doing is you're having somebody who's focusing on the customer, the technician, and then your call by call manager is actually focusing on the process so that the technician delivers that high quality service.
So you think it's more of a quality control measure at heart? Is that how you would present it to a plumbing team? To say that this isn't a sales technique, this is more of a quality control measure. Tell me, how do you think the best way to present this to people would be?
Yeah, not only a quality control, it's also a customer service thing, because the call by call manager is actually ensuring that the quality of the communication is happening, the quality of the diagnosis, also the quality of the options that are being provided to that customer are the best. Two heads are always better than one. And so when I'm doing call by call management and I'm working with my service tech, we come up with an option that's much better than what one of us could have come up with. And so it's a better service all around to the client. And it just makes sure that, everything's being done kind of in a similar fashion.
So we do want to make sure that we let all the plumbers know out there that even though you might think this might be a negative, we did check in we had Sal, who was working for your company.
Yeah.
And we just asked him to make sure that he felt cared for, respected, and supported throughout this process. As we went to the training with you and your coworker, how did he feel? Did he feel like it was being like an overlord of sales, or was it pushy, or what was his viewpoint of things?
Yeah, no, Sal was a great sport. And he's been through Service MVP, but it's been probably 7 or 8 years since he graduated. And, so he's kind of fallen, off of the actual program. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity for him and I to kind of get back together. And so, I was his call by call manager, and he was out there as a service technician. He actually had a lot of fun. And of the calls that we ran, we ended up selling a $15,000 top package to one of our customers for a gas line repipe. And we ended up selling a water heater to a family that had no hot water. And it was one of the mid-range packages. It was really, really fun. It was exciting. And it was really cool to just kind of interact like that. And I don't think it didn't feel like micromanaging or anything like that.
Give us the overview, looking at what you expected compared to what you saw and got here. What was the difference in what the expectation was compared to what actually happened when you went to the training?
I'll be honest, I didn't know really what to expect. I was more nervous than anything. But as I went through the training, I was actually became more excited because it's not anything different than what we already do. It's just kind of making sure that we're accountable for the things that we're supposed to do on every single call. And I was like waiting for the next call. I couldn't wait for the next call to come in so that we could do the process again. I learned a ton, the pre-call, the mid-call, and the post-call, and how important those are. And even the morning huddle that we do is actually designed to prime the team and get everybody focused and get the boat rowing in the same direction.
Let's go over that a little bit. Let's go over to the format here with it a little bit. Now, the idea behind call-by-call management, for those of you who are uninformed, is that a leader who is the quality control supervisor will take up to 5 technicians, maybe 5 to 7 if everybody's trained properly. And then you would then be guiding them and watching everything they're doing on the diagnosis and on the solutions and everything. We'll go over some of that stuff that they cover with each and every technician before they present to the customer. Does that make sense, sir?
Yeah.
So it's more proactive than it is reactive. Does that make sense, sir, James?
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that I got was the observations, right? Getting the technician to zoom out on the house and look at the entire system and actually come up with all of the problems. And I think understanding, when the homeowner can understand the problems that they have, then it just makes the solutions that much easier to understand. And if the customer understands them, then they tend to purchase them more often than not.
Let's go over a little bit about how the day starts for a call-by-call leader or supervisor, the quality control person. So you start the day out and you have your team with you. What's the very first thing that a call-by-call leader does with the team in the morning? Just let them go on calls and then we catch up to them, or what happens there?
Absolutely not. Yeah, so the first thing you want to do is have a team huddle, and you're going to bring the team together. And Service MVP has a great format. We have basically like 2 or 3 paragraphs that we read, basically reminding everybody that this is a place of learning and this is a place of positivity, and that everybody here is to show respect and support so that we can get better, not only for ourselves and our families, but for our customers as well.
That huddle is an important factor to get the day started right, and also to make assignments to get the thing, everybody's on the same page. What special thing are we going to work on today as a group? So it's kind of a team game. Would you agree with that? That's a very interesting way of putting it. It's not just a individual person, it's the whole team we're working with here. What do you think of that?
Yeah, exactly. I think the tribal knowledge is super, super important. And so part of the huddle is we have the team members kind of go over some of their wins from the day before. And by doing that, other people who maybe didn't have those wins can also experience it. And if they come across something like that, then they can use it. They can use it for their calls as well.
That's really great. Now, the one thing that is important, though, to have that huddle, let's say first thing in the morning at, say, 7:45 or whatever you're going to have it at, how important is it the dispatcher is communicating with the call-by-call leader so that we're aware of that, hey, don't give the guy any calls until we have that huddle. Otherwise, if you gave everybody the calls, how many people do you think would show up at the huddle if the dispatcher gave them all calls to do right now at the first thing in the morning?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Once a technician gets a call on their board, that becomes the only thing that they're thinking about. And luckily, we do have our software, Service Titan, does allow us to show them the calls and not show them the calls, and we can undispatch them and redispatch them and things like that. But it is super important to make sure that the dispatcher and the call-by-call manager are getting together in the morning, making sure that, number one, we're not dispatching the calls too early, and number two, making sure that we have the right technicians on the right calls so that we're set up for success for the day.
So your dispatcher is restricting the schedule from your people, then they have the huddle, and then the leader says, okay, you can go ahead and give my guys the calls now, right? So now they're driving to the calls, and then you're starting to do some pre-call research. What are some of the things that you would look for in the pre-call research? I mean, you got homes in San Jose, Morgan Hill in that area. What would you be imagining? You're an experienced plumber, who's been there for a long time. What kind of things would you see that you might be able to clue your people into just by looking at the property and things like that?
Yeah, so we're going to look at a couple of things on before we get to the call. Number one, we're going to look at the property. Okay. Our software, luckily, it does provide all that information. We're going to look and see when it was last sold, so we can get kind of an idea of how long the homeowners, been in the home. We're going to also, by the time frame, we can see guess what kind of material that we might be dealing with, if they're cast iron pipes or ABS. We're also going to look and see if it's a previous customer. If it is, we're going to check all the job notes and just see if there's anything else or what we've done for them in the past. Make sure the technician who's showing up on site is aware of that. And then another one I learned too is we actually will do like a small Google search on the customer's name and just see if they have a social media account available. We're not spying or snooping. We just want to kind of get a feel for what type of person they are, what type of value system that they might have. And, and so if there's anything on there that we can gain insight on, we use that as well.
And so if you got 5 technicians, the quality control person is doing a quick check on the customer themselves, looking at the home, seeing any trouble spots they might have. Now, once the guy gets on the job, what are some of the things, the anatomy, it's called, of the call by call? This is really detailed. I don't think we've ever really done one like this before. Tell me about that. So first of all, you're starting to see the diagnostic is being done, right? So how important is that diagnosis or the observations, if you will, to the success of the call by call outcomes?
Yeah, that was actually probably the most eye-opening thing that I experienced during the training, is that the observations is basically everything. And so finding the problems, understanding the customer code and the reasons why they called us out to the home. If you don't get that stuff right, you're not going to get your options right, and you're really more or less just going to confuse the customer rather than creating a wonderful experience for them and their family.
So you're diagnosing it, and a lot of times people put down like, yeah, it's got a broken igniter, or they got the drains clogged. That's the whole observation. How much in depth do you go with that observation? What are you looking for when you say the observation? Tell us, what do you think that would kind of come up with those different categories there?
Yeah, there's multiple different categories, but we want to look at we kind of want to zoom out and look at the house, as a whole. We also want to look at the family too. So I want to know wife's names, kids' names, pet names, things like that. I also want to know, what's the reason they're calling us out? Are they tired of this? Are they frustrated by this? Is this causing them stress or anxiety? What's the reason we're out there? And then we want to look at the house, and there's several things we want to look at. We want to look at the age of the home. We want to see if there's any neglect. We want to look for any safety or health items that could be potential hazards. We want to look for any design faults, any installation faults. And then we also want to look at, the problem and what they called us out there for, and what the impact to the client is, right? And so once we actually understand all of those items, then we start to get a better picture of what's going on. And even as the call by call manager, I don't have to actually be there. But if I can actually access this information and then looking at the photos that the technician's taking, I can get a really good sense of what's going on and what needs to happen, which direction we need to flow.
Without a problem, there's no reason for a solution, right? I always hear one of the biggest criticisms of our system, the total immersion system, is that how do you get these guys to come up with all these options or these solutions like that? I got to think about all that stuff. Like, it's going to make my brain hurt thinking about all these different options here. But so how important is getting the observations right? And what impact does that have on the ability to make solutions? If you minimize it, what impact does it have? And if you got it right, what impact does it have on the solutions?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, when we don't get the full picture, we don't give full options. And it is much, much harder if the technician is only giving you, one or two little things and they're not showing you, the whole picture. Whereas once you get to see everything, for example, if the technician uncovers that, little Sally has, eczema, well, we know to include, whole home water filtration, and that changes the whole direction of the option sheet, right?
The safety and health components in there.
Exactly. That would be a safety and health item. But if he doesn't uncover that or doesn't ask those questions and doesn't figure that out, obviously we become very limited in our scope.
Yeah, we start making up stuff to throw at the wall. I say throw stuff at the wall and hope it sticks is what I've always said on that part there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then even the service membership, right? All that kind of stuff. Like, a lot of people don't want that membership. I feel funny offering it. Well, if you found that people have an impact to take care of them for multiple years, how important is it that for plumbers especially, the multiple year service memberships for both the equipment, like tankless water heaters or repipes, and also just the repairs of that 5-year down to 60-day membership. A lot of plumbers are hesitant to offer those memberships. You probably have seen it yourself. You know a lot of plumbers, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about that. The bigger the problem, does that impact the plumber's ability to really believe in the memberships and the warranty and that part of it there?
Yeah, I think once upon a time, I was just as guilty as every other plumber. I couldn't wrap my head around the idea that, the customer actually wanted us back out to the house, once a year to check on things. But once you start, understanding that this is a mechanical system and these systems need to be maintained. And if we're not out there maintaining them, then we're going to be out there on an emergency basis. And that's typically when the customer doesn't want us out there and it becomes more costly. I read a national statistic that an annual plumbing inspection can actually reduce emergency plumbing calls by up to 70%.
Wow.
And I don't know about you, but I think there's a lot of homeowners out there that would they want to reduce their emergency calls by 70%.
So the call-by-call leader, or the quality control leader, makes sure that the diagnostic is done thoroughly by every single technician at that point there, right?
Yeah, exactly. The cool part about that is sometimes the technician might, we'll say, lose focus or become unmotivated to do these certain things. And it's the call-by-call manager's job and duty to not only his fellow employee, but to the family to get him back on track. And I think that was actually a really cool part of the training is learning how to actually manage the conflict that the internal conflict that sometimes a technician has, and, being able to get him, back on track.
So then after you get the diagnostic right and everybody agrees that looks good, then we're going to make out all the options down to just the basic fix at the bottom to the more premium option where it solves the whole problem with the best warranty and service and all that part of it there. And so far, it doesn't sound like it's a real salesy type of a job. Did you feel like when you were doing the training, like, oh, I see, they're just turning me into a shark salesman who's doing that? How much of it felt like you were doing sales actually?
No, yeah, surprisingly enough, none of it actually feels like sales. I think my first call when I got on to talk to the homeowner, it was great. I said, hey, I'm our quality control supervisor, and part of my job, and I just explained what I do. Part of my job is to review the call and look over everything and just make sure that the communication is professional, that the diagnosis is correct. Because when you're looking at plumbing, so, one plumber could think it's something and then another plumber could think it's something else, right? And so when you have a difference of opinion, you have two people looking at it, we can actually figure out, okay, well, what's the best course of action on that? And so as I'm explaining it to the customer, hey, we're going to make sure that your diagnosis is correct, that we agree on it, and that we're getting the best options that are customized for you and your family, and the most relevant to what's going on. And actually, the last customer of the day when I was in training actually called back and called our office to tell them how professional we were and how happy they were with the service. Yeah.
What is the customer's impact? They have a service technician, but then they have a guy who's kind of looking at the quality control on every call. What's the customer outlook to that? What's their reaction or their response? Does it make the technician look like he's a dummy, or does the customer get more confidence? What do you think on that?
Yeah. So it's pretty funny, but you see this in a lot of other industries. Like I'll give you an example, the restaurant industry. They have figured out how to provide fantastic service. Well, first you're going to have your host that takes you to the table, and then you're going to have the guy that fills up your bread and water, and then you're going to have your server, and then you have a bartender that'll make you a custom drink, and then you have a guy that'll come and clean the table. So you have almost 5 people, touching that table. Well, in home service, the way we used to do it is we just have one plumber go out there and just kind of take care of things. And now with the new way of doing things, we have a call taker taking the call. We have a dispatcher dispatching the call. We have a plumber showing up to the call, potentially an apprentice on that call as well. And then we have our call by call manager that's also, looking over that call. And then we have a service manager that's overseeing the entire kind of operation. And so under the new service guidelines now, we have 5 people that are in and around the plumbing industry that are actually taking care of that home. And the customer feels that. Anytime you can get more people and more eyes on the customer and their home, and especially if they can specialize, that's where you're going to provide the best possible service for the client. Nothing's going to get missed, and things are going to get done the same way. And that's what we're all shooting for, is a level of consistency, within our business and our industry, because I think plumbers get such a bad rap because they all do it, so differently.
Well, I mean, it may be inefficient, but now there's more revenue to cover that inefficiency. Would you agree that's true?
Yeah, that's true too. So if you're going to provide a better service, then you're allowed to charge for that, right? And you need to charge for that so that you can actually continue to provide that service. Without charging properly, you won't be able to have a call-by-call manager for very long. Without charging properly, you won't be able to have an apprentice, and so on and so forth. So that's a huge component to the business.
How do you think this would affect like lead turnover? So if we had like a call-by-call leader who's a quality control person, and then you have an apprentice or another technician who's not good with the bigger jobs, how do you imagine that happening over at Bailey Plumbing, that every call now they have an expert looking at the entire job? How is that going to affect the ability to find bigger options and bigger solutions, as opposed to just doing all the small fixes all the time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's actually one of the biggest benefits of call-by-call management is you can have a brand new technician, like an apprentice who's just going out on maybe a maintenance call or an inspection of some sort. And if he just sees something that looks off to him, he just politely brings it up to the homeowner, lets them know about it, and then just kind of says, hey, if you want to learn more about it, I can actually get my quality control supervisor, on a Zoom, or we can get him on site if you'd like, whatever works best for you. And so, it takes that inexperienced person who hasn't had the skill set to do that on his own yet, and it allows him to bring it to someone who does it all the time.
So the quality control leader could be making an option for repipes or for the tankless, or when you got the junior technician or the guy who's a kind of like just not used to big numbers, and now the call-by-call person via Zoom can present those solutions, and everybody wins, right? In that case, it's a team game where both people win on that one.
Yeah, the customer gets fantastic service, and they get the options that they should be getting when someone comes out to the home. And then the company also uncovers the opportunity so that, because if we don't do it, our competitors will, right? So we have to make sure that if there's an opportunity to help a family with their plumbing, that we bring it to their attention and we show it to them.
There are other people who try to teach call by call, and what they do is they put the quality control person, they don't call him quality control, they call him a shark. Like he's pushing people to do bigger jobs. You think it's important to push people to do bigger jobs? You think the bigger jobs just kind of fall in your lap? What do you think on that?
Yeah, that's funny you say that. If you just follow the process, the bigger jobs just tend to happen. There's no conversation like, oh, you got to try to do this, or we got to try to offer them this. It's like, no, what are the facts? What are the client code? What are the needs? What are we seeing at the house? And then together, and they come up with the options. And the thing I also like about it, right, is that one plumber, he can come to the house and he could tell a little white lie, or he could be, slightly dishonest. But two people, when you have a call-by-call manager and you have your technician out there, it cuts that stuff out. I mean, it cuts it out completely, because the call-by-call manager is looking at just from a very objective standpoint, and they're just trying to provide the best service for the client, and they're not right there in front of them. They're just looking at the facts. And so I think it keeps everybody honest. It also makes the customer feel good, because they're like, wow, okay, I got two people who are actually agreeing on this. So I've got two opinions from two separate people that are agreeing on this is the way this should be done. And sometimes that's really helpful for a customer.
Well, I mean, you are using more resources and both training on this thing and having somebody supervise everybody in real time. And then you're also using Rilla, which is that call management software. You're going to start incorporating that with this as well too now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How important do you think something like that would be to be able to systematically communicate so that everybody does feel cared for, respected, and supported with that type of AI approach with that?
One of the biggest things in your program that you teach is accountability. And if you let someone do something and then you don't have any accountability for it, or you don't have any way of testing it, then you're kind of just you're letting the inmates run the prison, right? And once you have that going on, it's kind of hard to stop. With software like Rilla, they actually have it to where it uploads your benchmark sheet, and then it's recording the technician, allowing basically analyzing how much of that benchmark sheet they're actually hitting. Because even in call-by-call management, you're not exactly, right there in the customer, in the client's ear, hearing them say it word for word. But when you do call-by-call management and then you have Rilla on top of that, it is like you're there, and you can very quickly see, and you can correct those issues if the technician isn't following, the benchmarks.
What would you say to a plumber who's might be getting involved with call by call when he says something like, "This sounds like you're micromanaging me, like you're babying me. I don't need babysitter on my calls." What do you think of that? What do you think of that's kind of a statement if a guy would? Because plumbers are they're straight up, they're abrupt, right?
Absolutely. So a good example that I always talk about is, a coach to a football team, right? Mm-hmm. Does a coach not sit on the sidelines and not coach the calls? Does he just go, behind underneath the bleachers and wait till the game's over, and then waits for his football players to tell him, "Oh, we lost," right? No, the coach is watching every single play, and if he sees something he doesn't like, he's going to call the player out of the game. He's going to coach that action. He's going to put him right back in the game, or he's going to at least do it at the quarter or the half. Right? You see it with the quarterbacks. As soon as they come off the field, they're on an iPad and, going over with the coach immediately. So just like a coach coaches their football team, our call-by-call managers coach our technicians.
Wow.
And it's the only way to do it.
And you're not listening to the customer and the technician. You're just putting the customer in a position to succeed, right? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. AI is amazing because it can transcribe. It takes all the voice that you're doing, transcribes it to words, and then matches it up against the benchmark sheet, and then tells the technician in real time, hey, you followed your benchmarks about 80% of the time or 50% of the time. And you can actually see the technicians that are following the benchmark actually have a higher close ratio, a higher average ticket, and all their numbers tend to be, better. Whereas when you get people who are not following the process and not doing it all the time, their tickets are lower and their customers aren't as happy. And and all that stuff. So it's really correlates.
It's really about where the rubber hits the road, though, right? So the first day you were in the training, and we did really on learning how to do coaching better and be a better coach, and then just learning about the process and how it works. Got it trained on that. And day 2 was when you went live. You had your technician and you. Can you tell us what kind of revenue was done on that day, or what was the difference in the revenue with him being watched and him being monitored like that and him being helped? What was the difference in revenue?
Yeah. So this was it was fantastic. We have basically an average ticket of around maybe $2,200 or so, with like an average sale of around $6,800, and we ended up running 2 calls together. Unfortunately, they were farther apart, so we had to wait for the technician to drive. And I didn't want to actually put 5 technicians all at once because that would be crazy for me. But we ran 2 calls and sold over $19,000. We got 2 5-star reviews, and 2 really, really happy customers.
2 5-star reviews, about $10,000 average calls, something like that.
Yes. Like I said, it felt super natural, super easy. It was really fun. The technician loves it too because, he's helping out the customer. We're raising his average ticket and all that good stuff too. So
why don't you give plumbers some final thoughts about call by call, and tell them it's not just for HVAC people. It's here for plumbers, and it's making a big difference. Tell us a little bit about that. Just give us your final thoughts there for plumbers.
Yeah, listen, I would tell you, I did the total immersion training, a couple years ago, and I saw the increase to our business and the impact that it had on it. But I put off call by call management because in my mind, I just had this block. And my only regret is that I didn't actually do this sooner, because I truly do believe that this is the way, if you want to be a professional company and you want to offer the highest level of service to your customers, this is the way to do it. So it's not just for HVAC people, it's for plumbers, and it's for electricians as well. We have an electrical company, and we're going to be rolling that out with the electrical side as well.
Yeah, I can't wait to get you an electrician here. You can tell him I said that, okay?
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Well, I do want to give James a final gift here before we go. We do have our book, What Should We Do? How to Win Clients, Double Profits, and Grow Your Home Service Sales. By the way, if anybody wants a copy of this book, just email me at joe@servicemvp.com and just title in the subject, put free book. Free book, joe@servicemvp.com, and I will make sure we send you a free book or an Audible book to do that. James, I want to go ahead and give you this book as a reward for being here today at this podcast. I appreciate that.
Perfect. Thank you, Uncle Joe, and thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next podcast. Everybody have a great one. See you then.